Hi. So it's a pleasure for me to be with you. I'm just in the middle of writing a book right now. Actually, it's kind of like 5 different books at once. I haven't written a book in about 6 years. So my wife passed about 6 years ago, and I sort of stopped everything. But I'm sort of back now. I'm remarried and feeling more connected to life, and I'm very happy. But I wasn't for 5 years. So this book I'm going to talk about that I was writing on today is how to talk to men in a way that men will listen. And of course, we have men here as well, and they'll learn what women are learning, because more we can learn about the opposite sex, the better, in my opinion. So does that sound like a good topic?
Yeah.
Talking to men. So we're facing a challenge today, which is women really never cared about talking to men. Back when Men Are From Mars was this massive hit in the 90s, there was a book that preceded it by a month. That was called You Just Don't Understand, Deborah Tannen. It was a wonderful book. Not that many men read it because it didn't really understand men's point of view, but it definitely addressed issues that women were having. It seemed like it was a theme in the 90s that women were complaining, men don't listen. You just don't understand. Now, I've been doing this since the 70s, and in the 80s, it was more about, you don't bring me flowers. There was a famous song. It was a time where women were saying, we want more romance from men. Where is the romance? And men were really not trained in doing that. I grew up in a generation where my dad was a good provider. We had a good upper middle class family, so it was a nice neighborhood. There wasn't a lot of scarcity of money. There wasn't an abundance of money. There was a safe neighborhood. Women were much happier then, at least if you had a middle class husband. If you didn't, his life was survival. But, he had a good job, welcome. And she could say to her 6 boys, go and play. Now, it was a safe neighborhood. I would walk to school, which was 30 minutes, go out into the woods, go play by the river. It was like you imagine childhood used to be, and it's no longer. We're all being protected. There's danger everywhere, coddling everywhere as well. We're just sort of hovering over our children, and a lot of problems are going on today. But the simple point I'm making is that there weren't so many challenges in relationships if a man could make enough money to support his family. The only time where you see a lot of dysfunction is when a man can't earn enough money to help provide for his family. Then that's a huge stress on him, which puts a huge stress on her. Men's whole sense of well-being is biologically wired to his hormones. And men have their period every day. That means every day he wakes up, his testosterone goes up, and then when he comes home, it goes down. And men thrive when their testosterone levels are up. So the idea is that if you're in a relationship, like my dad, he would go to work, his testosterone would go up, and then he'd come home, he'd take a good, half an hour to an hour to watch TV, read the news, and then he would participate with the family. That's called recovery time. So that was a big popular idea in Men Are From Mars. How many have read that book? I'm curious. So you remember the idea of the cave, is that this was like a big thrilling thing for women to understand, because men sometimes are in their cave, which means they don't want to talk. They have nothing to say. They don't shower affection and warmth on you. They're just sort of recovering from their day. And the reason it was important for women to understand this is because women generally don't have that same need, because they have a different hormone system. They have their period once a month. So what happens for women is every day of the month, her hormones change. After her period, there's a raise of testosterone and estrogen after about 6 days. Now estrogen has to double. Once estrogen doubles, she ovulates. Then estrogen has to come down a little bit, and progesterone has to be produced. It has to have more progesterone than estrogen. And then she has her period again. So the cycle goes around. At any time in that month, if her hormones are out of balance, she's stressed. Anytime a woman is stressed, This is why stress tests are really hard to come about this conclusion because if you're having stress at one time of the month, there's a different combination of hormones going on in her body. So it took years to map this out for me, which is, what I did is map this out to help explain, explain the ideas of men are from Mars are actually all biological. It's not just, I made these observations. It was my opinion. It was my opinion. It's what I saw worked, helped thousands of women and couples and so forth. And then I wrote the book. What I found is if women need more estrogen and particularly have romantic feelings, to have romantic feelings for a woman, her estrogen levels have to double. So what increases estrogen? Well, that would be a good thing to know for men. It'd be a good thing for women to know. So the foundation of this talk is a simple concept, which is if you measure a woman's stress levels or a man's stress levels, look at me. When I'm stressed, terrible symptoms. What happens when a man is stressed? Fight, flight, fake, fold, freeze. Okay, all those are symptoms. So this is a guy sitting on the couch. He's not moving anywhere. He doesn't look stressed, does he? But he has elevated cortisol levels. He's not motivated. He loses motivation. He's irritable. He's angry. He's frustrated. Measure his hormones. Most people think when a man's angry, testosterone's really high. No, testosterone's not. Testosterone's going down and his estrogen's going up. Estrogen, we'll call that the female hormone. Why do we call estrogen the female hormone? Because I have estrogen. We call estrogen the female hormone because in order for a woman to experience well-being, her estrogen levels at every time of the month, except during her period, they need to be, for her sense of well-being, at least 10 times more than a man's. So that's why we call it the female hormone. She needs 10 times more. If she can't have 10 times more and then have it at ovulation double, she can't make babies. So, of course, we see now lots of women can't make babies. It's so much hormonal imbalance. But what the body does, it rewards you anytime you do something to balance your hormones because the ability to make babies is the most essential thing on the planet. We know babies, we all die. We need food, we need sex to make babies. So everything that goes into the hormonal mixture that allows a woman's body to make babies, if she supports that stimulation, she has well-being. Same thing for a man. If he feels good, just feeling good, feeling quite nice, his testosterone levels will be 10 times higher than any woman in this room, 10 times higher. And for him to feel romantically inclined to commit his heart to a woman, his testosterone levels have to double as well. So the whole idea of romance came in because romance, the romantic behaviors, are super good at raising estrogen in women. And whenever a man can raise estrogen in a woman, his testosterone levels will go up. I have a little special nose inside my nose, 2 little flaps up here as a man, and their only function is to smell how much estrogen the women are making in the room. And particularly if I'm interacting with a woman and her estrogen levels are doubling, it sends a message to my nose. It goes, oh, something could happen here. And his testosterone level shoots up. That's called arousal in men. It's all chemistry. I mean, our mind can get in the way of chemistry, but it is chemistry. It's biology. It's genetics. Even smelling has to do with, they've done research now that if a woman has certain deficits in her immune system that are measurable, and a man has certain strengths at that same thing, she will smell his presence and be attracted to him. So this is this infinite intelligence that rules us by feeling attraction to each other so that we're motivated to create relationship. Now, another interesting thing is they did a study where they had T-shirts. They had these men, a bunch of whole men, and they measured them to see these 5 parameters of the immune system, where they were strong and where they were weak. So that, we're all different these ways. So they could measure this. And then they had all these women, same parameters, where they were strong and where they were weak. Who's heard this study? Just curious. Nobody. It's an amazing study. So then the guys just wore the same t-shirt for like 3 days. And they put it in plastic bags and then had these women smell the t-shirts. And some women felt attracted to those men that were wearing, didn't see the man. It was all just smell. And they felt, oh, I like this smell. Oh, I'm drawn to this smell. And others had a neutral response, no response at all. Well, it turned out when they did all this computer analysis, 80% of the women who liked the smell, in terms of these immune responses, the men had something that she was weak in. Okay, so there was just this genetic smell thing. It's also, you get this by the kiss too, which is why kiss is very important. But the smell is one thing. So you've got this smell, but only 80%. So they looked at the 20% where it didn't work. And it turned out that for the 20% that they didn't have this matchup, they were on birth control. And the 80 were not on birth control. So birth control inhibits your ability, a conclusion of that study one could have, interferes with your ability to smell the part, because you're on a different birth control is changing your hormones all around. So that's a study. I just think that's very interesting. When I was at a group of people where that was told, the men were going, yep, that was my wife. We were divorced quite a while ago. Because attraction is a very important part of relationship. So I started out talking about the 80s were about, you don't bring me flowers anymore. As a counselor, I was talking all about romantic skills and women wanted more romance. My mother never wanted more romance. Romance was never a big deal. That's certainly some romance. Historically, romance was considered the honeymoon period. Now, how many people know why it lasts for 3 months or 3 years, if you're familiar with that idea? So the idea is simply this. There's a brain chemical called dopamine. Now we're dopamine nation. Everybody knows that, understood that. I wrote a book on that 20 years ago. So there was this dopamine is what motivates us. It excites us. Like when you put on a new outfit, women, you go, oh, I feel good. New and different stimulates dopamine. Also, danger stimulates dopamine. Even though you don't go, gee, I want danger. Actually, a lot of people go to these scary movies. I don't know why they do that, but they do. Okay, so, but look at me. My wife looks at me. What kind of movies do I watch? Action movies where people are shooting each other, whatever. I was once in China, and it was a play, and they actually had men beating each other up like you would see in the movies. But it wasn't fun. It was like they were actually beating each other up, they weren't like great stuntmen. So the movies are fantasy, but the fantasy is violence. Now, why? Because it's danger, and danger is exciting. And then we have this thing called PTSD that we discovered when soldiers went to war. It's dangerous. And so what happens is they're pumped up all the time on dopamine. And it's exciting. There's adrenaline being produced. And when they come home, they take a lot of Mountain Dew and shoot up cocaine and all these things. Let's keep that state. But when they come back into peacetime, now it's peaceful, what happens is their dopamine crashes. And that's when PTSD happens. Is then now they start to feel the terror and the horror and how terrible a war situation is, how broken their soul becomes in killing and murdering. This is not our natural thing as a heartfelt person. But when you're in peaceful state, now you can relax. Those feelings would come back up. And so suddenly they're back in the battle again. So that's all about dopamine. So, but just simply taking my wife on a vacation, somewhere new and different, going into a restaurant where somebody else is cooking for you, she feels taken care of. It's also new. It's a surprise what the food's going to be. That's called new and different. New and different has a different effect on men than it has on women. For men, it raises testosterone. For women, it raises estrogen. It's like many men, now you can't say all men because so many men are like women. That's been happening more. We'll get to that. But For me, if you kind of look at the outfits that men wear, uniforms. They say, this is what I'm good at. This is what I can do. If you're a billionaire, you just wear sandals and a t-shirt. That's the outfit that says, I'm so rich, I don't care what anybody thinks. Okay, but it's definitely not very romantic for a woman. But the idea of men is that if you go to the Academy Awards, which is, I guess, tomorrow, they're all going to be dressed up. And up until about 10 years ago, all the men wore the same outfit, a tuxedo. I still have the tuxedo from my marriage. If ever I need to look really good, a tuxedo looks really good. And so men just wear that same thing. A woman's going to wear different outfits. She wants variety. She wants change. She wants new and different, because new and different on her body makes her feel, for example, that's one example, raises her estrogen levels up. That's called shopping therapy. When women go shopping, they're looking, oh, I haven't seen that. Oh, I haven't. And the interesting thing about women is that my wife could go through the whole shopping mall looking at stuff, and I would be exhausted because she doesn't even buy anything. She says, look, oh, maybe that, new and different. Oh, this has come out. How would that look on me? See, that's all just new and different. It stimulates estrogen. And estrogen at the right time of the month in the right amount lowers her stress levels. But estrogen doesn't lower man's stress levels. Estrogen, too much, lowers testosterone. So that's why you see men. I remember back in the 90s, I put it in my book, and then everywhere in the malls, you would see in women's stores, couches. They figured out, men are like, find me a place to sit down. So I have no energy at all. Are we going to buy anything? Can we get out of here? It's not that I don't shop, but when I shop, usually I know what I want. I get in, I kill it, and I bring it home. You know, it's a victory. How fast that I did that. So there's this basic dynamics of we are wired differently. Our hormones are different, and our culture is different. You know, when people are always, they're still attacking me, but back when Men Are From Mars came out, just ironically, the biggest selling book of the whole decade in the world for that decade, and I never received a positive print interview. It's the media. See, there's a whole program in the media to neutralize the sexes. You see it now that we're all supposed to be opposite sexes. This is another agenda. Either it's foolishness, whatever. I'm not going to comment on that. But it is the reality, is that the universities, when I came on board, part of my popularity is that they were all promoting this idea that men and women are the same. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm a successful therapist by explaining how we're different. And it's like people want to, give me a breath of fresh air. It's like some common sense here. And knowing this difference, what I found as a counselor was so helpful. So take some of the basic ideas. If your husband comes home and ignores you, you feel like, what happened? I don't understand why he's doing that. And yet when my dad did it, my mother didn't care. Why? Well, in my dad's generation, my mother's generation, life was more about survival and security. Okay, we're just coming into World War II, it just finished, and we're starting to feel really safe, but we still have this basic needs are being met. Dad could provide enough. We lived in a safe neighborhood. My mother's dream was 7 children. She had 7 children, 6 boys, 1 girl. And you could afford that. You can't afford that today. It's crazy. My dad made $7,000 a year. Nice house, 7 children, and a country club walking distance, with a tennis court and swimming pool. My mother could just say, go play. It was crazy time. Gas was 25 cents a gallon. Anyway, so what was great about that time, which maybe it will happen again, maybe someday, where at least a couple could choose to be in a relationship where a man could earn the money, and while the children were young, growing up, the mother had the freedom to be with her children as much as she wants. That's the world. And that's the ideal. That's Camelot. This is a possibility. We had a glimpse of it in the 50s and 60s. It wasn't perfect for everybody, but for those who could make enough money to have a nice middle-class life, marriage was a beautiful thing. And lots of children are being produced. A lot of people think we shouldn't have more children. There's too many children and so forth. So a lot of agendas going on. I'm not going to talk about those. All I know is that got the 80s, women wanting romance. What was the big deal about romance? It turns out that as women now felt responsible, or chose or felt responsible to make money to support the family, what they're doing is all day long at your job, in any job, you're making testosterone. Anytime you have a goal and you're achieving that goal for money rather than because you love that person. See, I like all of you, but I'm not in love with you. You're not in love with me. But this is my job. I do this to make money. Now here I don't make any money, but I practice my ideas. So I do all of these. They don't pay me for this, and I love talking. And so I have my books I'm writing. I develop my ideas talking to audiences. I develop my ideas in my counseling practice. That's not really where my income comes from. It comes from books. So why do you do it? Because I have to test out my ideas. I have to interact with people. And it was really such a hard time. Come on in, have a seat. Come on in, have a cup of seat. Is that human beings need to interact with other human beings. Very, very important. I do, you do, everybody does. And the more we can interact with other beings where we're expressing the truth, maybe at one level, just have people agree with you. Just to be, this is why culture is so fabulous, is that at least everybody agrees with you. So you have the sense of belonging. But you can go to another level of connection, which is knowing the truth. And ultimately, this is why we want to be in intimate relationships. Because everybody on one level is pretending. We have our clothes on, we have our image, we have our lifestyle. Here, this is about me. But there's a whole other part of everybody. And now that's magnified with social media. So, social media is so fake. I mean, I can remember times when I know what goes on in the bedroom of couples because I'm a therapist for 40 years. I know what goes on in the trouble of families. But you can go online and see those same families smiling and taking pictures, and they're in Hawaii or doing this. And I know they're not having sex. I know one person hates the other one. I know somebody else is wanting to commit suicide. All this stuff is going on. But on the surface, everything looks so good. Yet we know ourselves and we kind of, I'm not part of that group. I'm left out of that group. That in itself is a major source of stress. So where do we get the truth? Where can we be seen? Where can we see somebody else? That's our relationships. That's intimacy. Intimacy. So the 80s were the time of romance. Why? Because as women went over to their male side, much of the day they're making testosterone, not estrogen. There's nothing wrong with women making testosterone. It's just when they're making testosterone, are they making estrogen? So what would be the symptom of a woman who's making testosterone and not producing estrogen? Well, on a biological level, her stress levels will be high. And this was proven in a massive study with all this research going on, where they found that women in the workplace have stress levels twice as high as men. Now, why is that? It's because in the workplace, it's designed for testosterone. It's called work for money, not for love. You work for money. You do it because you have to do it to produce the result, as opposed to you love to do it, you like to do it, you do it out of love. And while you're doing it, you feel very much supported. So these are two sides of life. Good woman to have is a balance of that. So for a woman to be in the workplace, neglecting her female side, so to speak, it's wonderful for her to be in a relationship with a man who has the potential of raising her estrogen levels up through romance. She also has the potential of raising her estrogen levels up by leaving the workplace and coming home to a group of women that she interacts with. Because women, when they get together, there's a natural understanding of what you're going through, and that gives you comfort. See, that produces estrogen. We know that women who live in a house together, their period goes in harmony. Everything goes in harmony. So this is energetic. Did they sign up for that date? No. Energetically, we affect each other. So when women are with women, estrogen goes up. Now, I'll just speak from my own personal experience here for a moment, having 3 daughters and a wife. And I would travel for the weekend quite often, teach my classes. When I came home, my kids were so happy to have dad in the house. It was like a grounded presence, a silent, peaceful, grounded, can-do person who wasn't upset about anything. And that's the benefit we men have, is when a man is grounded in his masculinity, he's cool, he's calm, he's collected, and he's quiet. So women are terrified of quiet because they don't understand. Because when women are quiet with their husband or boyfriend, they're usually mad at him. If you're mad at a man, you won't talk. I'm going to punish you. And he goes, I have no problem with that. If you think about men bonding, it's through silence, doing things. Women share experiences by talking about their experiences, and they produce estrogen. Men share the experience together. So I could be fishing. One of my fondest memories growing up was my friend's father took me fishing. And when this little boat, rowboat down a little river, and no talking, just fishing. And it was like my first experience of enlightenment. It's like, finally, no talking, silence. It was such a bonding experience. I remember it to this day. So strong. Another really strong experience is when I went deer hunting with the older men, teaching me as a young guy in Texas how to do the deer hunting thing. I wasn't wild about killing the animals, so I stopped later. I figured, okay. I felt really guilty after killing my first deer, and my mother wisely said, as long as you eat that, then that will be the gift. Okay, so I ate the whole freezer was filled with venison. Nobody else in my family ate it, but I ate venison and that whole year. And I was proud of it. But the thing for me is when you kill a deer, you shoot it with your rifle through your scope. You aim for the shoulders. Now, why you aim for the shoulders is one bullet doesn't kill a deer. So if you don't get their shoulders, then you down them. If you don't get their shoulders, they can run off and die a painful death. So what you do this way is you knock them down, then you go and with a pistol and you blow their brains out. Well, I did that, and I still see those sweet little eyes of the deer. Right? So that's my female side. It's like I decided not to do that anymore. But I still remember the power of hunting. It wasn't just deer hunting, because you have to be quiet and you wait. You're waiting and you have a shared intention, silent with a shared intention. And that's how men bond, by doing things together or competing together. These silly books talking about, oh, poor boys, they all have to compete. It should just be all win-win. Everybody gets a trophy. No, masculinity needs to compete. Why? Because competition raises testosterone. And so what you do is you put kids in competitions where they find the right thing where you can excel. Okay, that's the whole thing, is you create a situation where you can be successful without a doubt. Success builds character, it builds confidence in males, but put them in situations where they can feel successful. One of my favorite things I read was an interview. It was actually an interview with a guy who's a famous bowler. So he always bowls strikes. You just can't beat him. Just strike after strike. You can tie him, but you can't beat him. And he tells the story of his father grew up in a bowling alley. And this is before they had electronic machines. And so they have to be somebody down with the pins. And when you knock them over, they put them back up manually. So when the little boy would throw and they didn't have gutters either. So when he throw the ball, it would go off to the side. The dad would be there. He always moved one pin over. So it was always a noise, always a response. And it was like, that was considered normal. It wasn't like, oh, too bad. And when he got a strike, it wasn't like, oh, great. It was just, we're playing the game to throw the ball. So he had no fear of failure. And so he was able to develop his skill without the fear of failure. I could diverge into parenting, but I'm not. I'm still hooked into what happened at the 80s. So in the 70s, women were liberated. They went to their male side. They're more independent. They're making money. They're feeling the power of their male side, which is a great feeling for anybody. But now they're neglected on their female side. So suddenly there was this whole movement towards, we want romance. And men are like, what's that? I mean, more sex? I'll do that. He doesn't even know what romance is. So basically, women were needing romance because romantic behaviors stimulate higher levels of estrogen. What is a romantic behavior? Well, I remember when I opened the car door for my wife the first time, and she said to me, I can do that. I said, well, of course you can do that, honey. but you do so much for me. Let me do everything for you tonight. See a little feeling that nice, soft feeling inside. That's your female side. And somebody carries a box for you. Some women are like, no, I can do it myself, as opposed to, oh, that's nice to have somebody carry that box for me. And a romantic gesture is you take your wife out to a restaurant. You could cook for her at home too. But even better is a restaurant. Why? Because there's no cleanup, there's no mess, there's no shopping. You go to the restaurant, have a nice menu. He's going to provide this for you. So there's a man comes in with your food. They're going to clean up afterwards. Everything looks beautiful and immaculate. Woman can go, yes, and I don't have to do anything. See, this is a magic phrase, I have to or I don't have to. Anytime you have to do something, you produce testosterone. Anytime you don't have to do something because somebody's going to do it for you, you make estrogen. Now, I'm not in any way implying that women shouldn't have have-tos in their life. Life is a series of have-tos. But when you're stressed, what do women commonly say to me as a counselor? There's so much I have to do. I feel overwhelmed. I have no time for me. And I thought that was the most amazing thing to hear that over and over, because I never feel I have no time for me. Because it's like, men have Ferraris. We like to go fast, but we have brakes. I remember when I bought my first Ferrari, and then I returned it to the store the same day because it was a beautiful car. I always wanted a Ferrari as a kid. I could finally afford one. I went in and bought the Ferrari, and beautiful red Ferrari. I mean, they're gorgeous, pretty cars. But then when you get in one, has anybody ever ridden in a Ferrari? Well, they're race cars, so they're bumpy and they're noisy. They're not comfortable. They look pretty, but they're not comfortable. And I was driving down my driveway and the brakes squeaked. I'm not going to pull into a grocery store or somewhere with my brakes squeaking with my beautiful car. So I drove back. I said, I'm not going to buy this car. Brakes squeak. And they said, oh, they're just the best brakes you can buy. They squeak. This is a race car. It's in Mill Valley where there's a lot of mist, so it's not going to squeak everywhere. But anyway, so I returned it right then. I said, okay, I got my ego boost. I got a Ferrari. I'm done with a Ferrari. It's as simple as that. But what he told me, he said, these are the best brakes you could have, and they squeak. So I don't even know why I told that story. I'm sort of back trying to stay on track here with my point of the 80s. So in the 80s, men would be expected to be more romantic. And ironically, when a man experiences a certain sexual attraction towards a woman, and it's during the new phase, the honeymoon phase, that could be the dating phase now, he experiences that newness, the dopamine, the reaction he has in his body is surges of testosterone. Surges of testosterone. Now today, what we have is this massive addiction for a lot of men is the whole online porn thing. Well, when they do porn, the porn research, they have statistics and all this. When a man visits a porn site, he looks around for a while to find the one woman that sort of excites him with some visual excitement. And the whole experience from beginning to the website to ending is 8 minutes on average. So he has to hunt, he picks, he signs up, he does his business, and it's over. And rarely does he go back. This is just because it was a surge of dopamine. You're welcome to come and have a seat. Anyway, a surge of dopamine raises his testosterone, and no woman can ever raise his testosterone that much. It's the same thing as taking a shot of cocaine. If you take let's say you're bored in your life, you take cocaine, you produce huge amounts of dopamine that changes your brain so that normal life becomes even more boring. That's called desensitizing dopamine receptor sites. Now, one study showed that just it's just your first snort of cocaine reduces the amount of dopamine receptors in your brain by 30%. Which means when you're done with that first hit, it will never be the same. That's what they say. They always wish they could go back to that first time. And it can go back, not with cocaine though. You can heal the brain by stopping the addiction. These receptor sites, big bright light, your pupils contract. If you just go into a dark room for a while, they'll open back up. Cocaine hits me, the receptor sites close down. Now I can't make as much dopamine. My wife can't stimulate that, even though she's new and different still. It can't compete with that. So this is why I'm a big fan of encouraging men not to do pornography. Is one of the reasons why men don't commit, is they have so much choices. You have all the dating thing with swiping. That's all new and different. See, that's dopamine. The right person won't have any stimulation on you at all. It's really very, very sad. I mean, we can get through all this. These are some of the obstacles. But so the idea here is when you first fall in love, it's new and different. You get these high dopamine levels. Men's testosterone levels go really high. Women's estrogen levels go really high. And so you have something called attraction. That's polarity. You know, we think about in the physical world, attraction is positive pole and negative pole, two different charges. And when you come together, they click. And that's the spark of attraction. So there has to be a lot of differences inside of us. And there's going to be that click as you get closer and get to know each other. Click. For women to know, if you feel that click right away in a relationship, is the wrong man. That means it's pure fantasy. You're imagining he has what you want, as opposed to actually experiencing reality. So literally, there has to be this polarity based upon reality, not fantasy. Now, we had another thing happen with the whole feminist movement is, you know, when women are on their male side, men aren't attracted to them. So you got a positive pole, call it the male side, and the woman is on her male side. You get them close, and what happens? They repel each other. So now something very interesting I want to share is that women talk about their emotions. They talk about their feelings. That's very estrogen stimulating. Men like women's emotions, love women's emotions. When is a woman most emotional? Of course, when you're having sex. If you're making love, you're going to open your heart. You're vulnerable. You're feeling. What it means is you're allowing somebody to affect you. See, we go through life with all these barriers up. Well, if you don't like me, so what? If you don't like me, so what? But when you get in a relationship, your barriers go down. You become vulnerable. That vulnerability is what men are attracted to. That's essence of femininity. To see who I am. So let's just take a metaphor for this. Imagine, well, I know nothing about women, let's say, and I'm married to my wife, and she's not talking to me for weeks, and we haven't had sex in a while, and I think, you know, I need to go turn her on. So I think to myself, well, what would turn me on? Well, I bet if she climbed into bed naked, that would really turn me on. So a man will, thinking, all right, I'm going to make up with my wife, so she's not talking to him. He takes off all of his clothes and says, honey, I love you. Let's have sex. Is that going to work? No. But it is a woman's secret power. If a man's in a bad mood and you walk in and say, okay, I'm done with all the arguing. I love you. F me. You know what his reaction will be? He'll be stunned. He'll go, okay. And he'll forget everything he was upset about. Sex is the most powerful thing for men, not the most powerful thing for women. Love is when men behave in a loving way towards her, in a respectful way, a considerate way, a caring way, and a way that penetrates her emotionally before he penetrates her physically. It's a very important thing. Now, I see these women with their walls up because they're strong, independent women. You can't be vulnerable in the workplace. You got to be, you know, the can-do part of you, the have-to-do, fix-it thing. So you're over here on your male side, overwhelmed with stress. To come back to your female side would be very embarrassing. So it's embarrassing to have insecurities, doubts, feeling inadequacies, worrying, or being angry. You know, a lot of this stuff doesn't look good, but actually it's the juice of relationships. It's what men are most attracted to. As long as you're upset about something, he's not the problem. See, what is every romantic novel about? It's all about the woman in distress and the man who's going to save her. And then there's the dysfunctional romantic novels that turn women on to, which is one aspect that he's a billionaire, but he's shut down. He's a pirate, dangerous, but he needs to learn to love. He's a loner, but he can't express his feelings. She's immediately attracted to this. See, attraction is, those are very masculine qualities. But at the same time, she's turned on to him because she thinks, I can win him over. I can change him. I can improve him. She gets sucked in. The other one's the motorcycle guy. I watched a dating show a long time ago. The two guys were like really well put together guys with jobs and everything. And the other was total sleaze. I wouldn't even let him on my property. I would never let my children talk to this guy. And he was like straightforward. Yeah, I don't have a job. I just want to have sex. I like danger. I got a Harley, whatever. And the woman picks him. You gotta go. Because she turned him on, because he's an unavailable man. She grew up in a household with an unavailable father. When you have an unavailable father, which happened after the 70s and 60s, and suddenly, or the feminist movement, so many people grew up without fathers. Because when a woman is way masculine, no man's interested in her. Men need to feel, and of course what women say, well, they're all intimidated by me. I'm so successful, I'm so powerful. It's not so much intimidation like, you're so great and I'm not. It's, there's no job here for me. There's no job. I need to have an effect. Men are designed, what's my purpose? What's my mission? How do I make a difference? That's testosterone. If I do something without purpose and mission, my testosterone crashes. Unless I go for addiction. Men, the worst thing for men is a man out of work. You go to work, you make a difference. You get paid for it. If you go to work and get paid for it, your testosterone stays up. If you go to work and you don't get paid for it, your testosterone doesn't go up. If you don't go to work and you get paid for it, your testosterone stays down. That's an interesting thing, isn't it? Well, that was a book by Rockefeller where he wrote, his children were so dysfunctional. Rockefeller, one of these billionaires, he was so dysfunctional, he had to write a book of other children of billionaires to say they're all dysfunctional. They're weak. Because when a man doesn't earn his way, he doesn't build testosterone. If it's given to him, he becomes weak. He becomes passive. Is it already time to end?
No,
okay.
I have an appointment.
Okay, got it.
Thank you so much.
And you were going to be my timekeeper. Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, pleasure meeting you. So the idea of the whole 80s, women want romance. It was they were wanting that experience they've had a taste of, and they saw in the movies and the writers all that. They want that taste of feeling, I don't have to do it all myself. So that was it. Then we went into the 90s where my book became so popular because it dealt with romance, but it also dealt with communication. The big thing in the 90s was men don't understand. So it's almost like women said, okay, if I can't get romance, I'll go for the communication. And it turns out communication is so important to raise estrogen in women. So how to talk to a man so a man will listen. The key is talk about your feelings. Now, when I say feelings, this is a very confusing word. I could feel sad, and that's a feeling, right? I could feel that you don't like me, and that's a kind of feeling. That we'll call a feeling belief. That's intellectual. I feel like nobody likes me. One of my daughters, when she was growing up, the waiter would come by and say, she doesn't like me. She just had this thing going on. So nobody likes me. I feel like I'll never get love. I feel like you don't care about me. That's your ability to feel a thought. Now, when you feel a thought and it makes you unhappy, like it's got some negative charge to it, the thought is always wrong. If you feel the truth, what are you going to feel? Always good. When you feel something that's not true, you feel bad. So you can already know that anytime you're feeling some thought and you're not feeling good, you need to change that belief. Like if I'm a writer and I feel nobody will want to read my books, I won't write books. To write a book, I got to think somebody's going to like this book. You have to have some belief to motivate you. So if you believe, I feel like my husband doesn't love me, he doesn't care about me, I feel he's forgotten me, I feel I'll never get what I need. These are all just beliefs. And if it doesn't make you, I'm so happy he doesn't love me, then it's a lie. So you have to challenge what those beliefs are. So I figured out how to challenge those beliefs. Is when you have a belief, whenever you're not happy about something, what do you feel? What are you thinking? And what emotion is it causing? What is it going to cause? It's some simple emotion. It makes me sad. Makes me afraid. What are you afraid of? What are you sad about? What are you frustrated about? Now, frustration, sadness, fear, when you feel those things, that's pain. See, we can experience and we can feel pain emotionally. There's only basic emotions that are universal, which are our pain emotions. They're anger, there's sadness, there's frustration, there's disappointment, there's fear, there's concern, there's worry, there's regret. All right. This is emotional pain. So when your brain feels an emotion, it says, okay, what thought is going along with that emotion? Change it. Automatically, it will change. Your brain will self-correct if you feel emotions. Not only does your brain self-correct by feeling and expressing emotions, is that you make more estrogen. The most powerful estrogen producer is you start crying. I remember watching one of these funny shows where the businesswoman, and she would go out in the park and she'd sit and burst into tears and then she'd feel better again. Okay? Just feel your emotions, not your feeling thoughts. If you look at adolescent girls, immature girls, everything they say, they go, I feel like, it's like, I feel like. They don't have enough self-consciousness to actually identify and label the emotion they're feeling inside. This is called emotional intelligence. The front part of the brain has self-awareness. The middle part of the brain has these emotions. When you identify and express an emotion, you're connecting the front part of the brain to the emotional part of the brain, and then you have control. And when you have control, then you can have rational thought. And rational thought says, well, what can I do about that? Or if there's nothing I can do about that, then accept it. Or maybe I could try this. Maybe I could try that. Or maybe I'm getting upset over nothing. How many of any of us have been all upset about something and the next day it's no big deal? Raise your hand if you have that. We're all upset. The next day, everything's fine. I experienced this for 10 years when I was listening to women 8 hours a day. They would come into my office, talk about their feelings, and I practiced not giving advice. So nothing's going to change in their life. And they come in unhappy, and I get them to cry. I'm like the master of getting a woman to cry just by asking questions. Women would say to me, I don't know what happens. I turn the corner towards your house and now I start crying. Why? Because they feel safe. Because I'm going to listen to them with no judgment. And I'm going to have true interest. I love listening to women cry. But I don't cause it. I make it safe for them to open up and feel their emotions. As much as we say women, oh, they're so emotional. You are emotional, but have very little emotional intelligence, which can actually, in a conversation, say, I'm feeling sad because, or I'm afraid that, I'm concerned about this. You'll just tell the story. The story is superficial. It's I feel like, or what happened. So what we want is to talk in a way that a man will listen. If you bring emotion into a conversation with a man, your estrogen levels are going to go up. What happens whenever a woman's estrogen goes up in the presence of a man? He becomes interested. He gets drawn in, practically speaking, because he cannot relate to anything you're saying except I can relate to pain. I have a lot of pain inside. Every man walks around with pain. He often doesn't even know about it until a woman is in pain. He connects to her. He feels her pain, and that's how he knows his pain. And he feels compassion for you. He feels empathy for you. Now, I'm not talking about the modern man who walks around whining and complaining all the time. That's been conditioned from childhood. Section I was just writing today, amazing study, where it was looking at basic research saying, oh, we're all different because we've been cultured. Boys are cultured to be independent and problem solvers and goal-oriented and competitive. Poor boys. And girls are told to be sweet and nice and loving and kind and do fun things. Poor girls, not discovering their power. Well, this is what ruined the world. Not letting people first identify their exemplary male-female qualities and then expand and integrate the opposite. Is when boys are, oh, poor little boy, let's coddle him. I've taught in the prisons. People say, oh, poor men, they didn't get to cry when they were children. Like that's the reason why, quote, there's more prisoners in jail. No, that's not the reason there's more prisoners in jail. Every single one of those prisoners has a dysfunctional father and an unhappy mother. Doesn't exist in there. I've taught San Quentin. I know them. They love me. Until that's why they kicked me out, is that they liked me too much. The warden said they're having too good of a time. Yeah, actually, I was kicked out of San Quentin, which it's very weird. That was 20 years ago. It got a little weird too because they all wanted to know my address after they got out. I just kind of went, I don't want to be everybody's best friend. So, but it was the first time they ever experienced love. And here's where I'll give you the subtlety of it, which is why they kicked me out. Is I would teach classes of 32 men and 32 women I would bring in. And then I would have the men, this is psychology stuff where you do role playing. I'd give the men the instructions, the role play being her father. He would just say what I say to say. The women would express, they would cry, and the men's hearts would open. The only way they can feel anything is to make a woman cry by beating her. Then they feel something, because they're so shut down, as opposed to knowing how to treat her in a way that she feels safe, so you can actually share her insecurities, share her doubts, share her regrets, share her feelings of embarrassment. There's a whole world that I experience with women in therapy that they would never share with their husbands. One of my clients the other day said, oh, she had to stop talking because her husband was walking by. I can't share this in front of my partner. Now, part of your feelings are not healthy to share with your partner. Because anytime you share a negative emotion that's stimulated by your partner, what's he going to do? He's going to feel blamed. A man cannot feel empathy for you if you're blaming him. You can't feel empathy for me if I'm blaming you. Everybody shuts down when they're being blamed. So what you do is such a simple thing. It's changed people's lives. My ideas are so simple. I feel like Trump talking about myself. The ideas are so good. Instead of talking about your negative emotions, what you need to do to balance out your testosterone, produce estrogen. So when you produce estrogen, most powerful thing is to share emotions, to feel emotion, communicate emotion, analyze emotion. I feel this emotion because. Then you actually feel it. It's out in front of you, and somebody mirrors you by hearing you. And your brain goes, oh, I can let go of that. I can go look at that. I can look at that. See, this is how you let go of negativity. I could be in an audience and nobody showed up. I go, nobody showed up. What a bummer. Yes, but look at all this other success I had. You balance. My husband completely ignored me today. Yes, but yesterday he didn't. But when you're in the emotion, it's like, he never gives me what I need. You're flooded with that emotion. And so you have to step back from the emotion to be able to say, yes, but look at all this. You can complain, and I'll just share my own experience. I've done quite well in my life financially. I was in a fund. I had a lot of money. And my partner who ran the fund died, and we found out he was empty. I lost my whole savings last year. We're talking millions of dollars. And it turned out he had shorted. He put the biggest short. He would have been a $40 billion guy if his short had come through. It's a stock market thing. And he blew it. And then he died. Probably he was so stressed out over what he'd done. And so I have the reaction of, oh, yes, but I still have a job. I still can make money. I still do make money. So now I'm not stressed. It's devastating. One of my friends said, all I needed from a friend, by the way, one of my men's group, one of my friends said, they didn't say, how do you feel? What's going on inside? One of my friends, and I wouldn't tell him anyway. I'd suck it up because I understand how to be a man. See, men aren't taught this anymore. You're taught this if you go into the army. You stand in a line, and the drill sergeant just abuses you right in front of you more than any wife could ever do to you. And you say, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Roll your eyes and you do 50 laps or 50 push-ups. You learn how to suck it up. I love this phrase, suck it up. I even tell my wife, if ever you hear me complain, if I'm in a pissy mood for a moment, just say, John, you're overreacting. Suck it up. It works because I told her to say it. I wouldn't just walk up to any man and say that, okay? So I wouldn't do that unless I'm a drill sergeant. But I want to be reminded, I don't want to go over to my whiny, weak, wimpy victim side. I want to go to my male side. Because anytime a man complains, his estrogen levels go higher, his testosterone goes down. This is such simple biology. And yet we have this feminized culture that's feminizing men, that's destroying our youth. And you think, oh, this is so harsh. No, it's not. Now, if I'm 4 years old, it is. If I'm 8 years old, it is. But once a guy hits puberty, what you don't realize at puberty, a boy makes 10 times more testosterone in one day. One day, boom, just shoots up, just like you start having your period in one day. Boom, it happens. And at that time, when testosterone goes up, you do not need anybody asking you how you feel. You will interrupt your natural process. And now they've done it so far, they'll actually give you hormones. They'll give you estrogen to stop puberty. This is insanity. The craziest thing in the world. What's happening to our culture? It's just a blown up proportion of what happened since the 60s. Women going to their male side, we don't need men. Well, if you don't need men, what's my job? What's any man's job in this world? Make money to support a woman, have a family. That's our job. This is our biology. This is our biological imperative. If I don't find a woman and satisfy her and make love with her and make babies with her, then what happens in my life for most men is you'll be an alcoholic, you'll be a drug addict, you'll age earlier. And this is against statistics. Married men live longer and have less sickness. Married men live longer. And you might say, are these the happy male men? No, happy or not. The fact that they had enough commitment to stay with that woman for a lifetime, they will live longer. Because one of the most powerful things of producing testosterone is commitment. I say I'm going to do it, I do it. And if I don't do it, I feel terrible. And now but in order to follow through and have commitment, you need testosterone. And if you don't have, and look at the crisis here, the testosterone levels in men are half what they were like 50 years ago. On average, half. And every year it goes down, 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 down. I'm in my 70s. My testosterone's 50% higher than when I was a young man. I'm the exception. There's other men like me. I know other men with high testosterone. They're men. They work hard. They make money. They don't complain. I was going to bring politics into it, but I didn't want to. But high testosterone men they wake up and they work hard. Every day I get up, I do my meditation, I do my exercise, and I go and I write my books. I give my talks. I do the whole thing. If I don't do that for 3 days, I will be depressed. It is a limitation. My wife was very frustrated. I cannot take a vacation longer than 7 days. And even then, I have to do some work on the vacation. Keep my testosterone up. Because when you do things you like to do, enjoy doing, fun things, estrogen goes up. That's why men get addicted to alcohol. Estrogen goes up. Feels good. It's a thing for me. It would be not alcohol. It would be ice cream. It's some kind of 70s thing where men eat ice cream. The point of it is, if I eat ice cream, I get an extra 2 pounds in my belly. And you know what that 2 pounds in my belly does? Extra 2 pounds, 3 pounds in my belly? It makes estrogen. You see all these old guys that got bellies like this, they're pumping up estrogen. It's just a death sentence. For men, insurance companies know this. When a man retires, which means his testosterone levels dramatically dropped. Because if you don't have to get up and do something challenging or difficult, face the uncertainty and overcome it, this is men. If you don't do that, your testosterone levels drop. And so after you retire and you start playing golf or doing what you like to do or just piddling or whatever, now those aren't bad things, but that's the only thing. Then what happens is he makes all this estrogen. He has 3 years to live before his first heart attack. That's known. We have to keep our testosterone up. And for women, you go through menopause and your body's ability to make estrogen is limited. So you have to be more careful that you do extra things to produce estrogen and make sure that your testosterone levels don't go too high, because it's mainly learning to balance your estrogen and testosterone at that point. Before you go through menopause, you have to balance. The first part of your cycle is increasing estrogen. Then the second part of your cycle is reducing estrogen a bit and raising up progesterone. So if you don't have enough progesterone, you'll be depressed, anxious. All suicides happen for women about 5 days before their period when they're not making enough progesterone. Your body needs to be making a lot of progesterone there. What makes progesterone? Well, first of all, what takes away progesterone? Whenever you're producing a lot of testosterone, it uses up progesterone. That's biochemistry. To make testosterone, you use up your progesterone. So you go too far to your male side, you're going to have PCOS, all these things that women have. It's all too much testosterone. Why do you have too much testosterone? Because you're not nurturing your female side. How do you nurture your female side? Today, one was romance, when you let men do things for you, when you let men help you, when you ask men to help you. See, that's a whole new art, how to ask a man to do stuff for you. You have no idea how to do it. What women typically do when they're not getting what they want is to complain. Complaint is just an uneducated version of asking. You always leave your socks on the floor. How about, honey, would you pick up your socks? And he's going to grumble. And so then you go, okay, I'll just pick them up myself. No, just stand there and just say, honey, would you pick up your socks? And smile. Okay, I'll do it. He'll pick up the socks. And as he's moving to put the socks away, he's using his body. And whenever he uses his body, he makes testosterone and all his grumbles go away. You cannot imagine this. We're so unimaginable to you. Because if I said to my wife, honey, would you pick up my socks or pick up your socks? And she went, okay, I'll do it later. No, I need you to do it right now. Okay. When she walks away, she's making testosterone, not estrogen. So she'll remember that day forever. See, she grumbles. Grumbles don't disappear in a woman. But a man, they go away right away. As soon as he does whatever he grumbled about, he does it. And then he comes back and says, I did it, like he did some big, great thing. And at that point, you're very wise. You go, yes, you did some great big thing. You moved those socks. And women think, do I have to keep asking? Yes. It's the same question asked Jesus. How many times do you have to forgive somebody? And tell it's not hard to forgive. He said 7 times, 70 times or something like that. But the point is, my life's so smooth. My daughter was just saying to me the other day, Dad, you're a real inspiration to me. I just watched you my whole life, how forgiving you are. It makes you so peaceful. People, every time you're upset with people, you're just beating yourself up. So how do you communicate to a man? First of all, you bring emotion into the conversation, 1. 2, you make sure that your emotions, anger, sadness, fear, regret, shame, all those emotions are not caused by him. They're caused by people in your life. So he doesn't feel blamed. So I realize this, women are coming in my office. They say to me, why are you such a good listener? How can you listen? My husband can't listen to you like you. He loves me. I said, because you're not complaining about me. If you complain about me, find another therapist. Simple. First time my whole career, somebody called me up and complained. I said, okay, bye-bye. I have no interest to make up with her. She didn't want to make up with me either. I just told her husband, this boyfriend of her had been cheating her 15 years and you should just leave. It's a dysfunctional relationship. She did not want to hear that. Some people just don't want to hear the truth. And normally I don't give hard truth like that, but I just felt so sorry for her to be completely deluded by this guy who just using her. She was just a booty call. And 1 out of 10 men is just a booty call. That's all it is. And when you do those swiping things, 80, what is it that the statistics are, 90% of the women, or something like, let's say 80% of the women pick 20% of the men. Now those 20% of the men have all the women. So they're swiping all the time. With so much choice, they're not going to pick you. They're so easy. It's fruit off the tree. It's low-hanging fruit. Just go on those things. If you're in the, and of course you can just write up something to make it seem like you're the alpha males out there. Was an alpha male. He's got a job. He's over 6 feet tall. And suddenly, anything less than that, you don't even get seen. So what you have is 80% of the women having one-night stands, hating men, and you have 80% of the men never getting laid, hating women. This is the world today. It's crazy. And then those 80% of the guys who are not getting the women, they're all doing porn. It's a big mess. So how do you fix all this? Well, you start with what are the basics? The basics is come back to your female side, know how to produce estrogen, find a man that you're not turned on to. That's the first step. All these women in their 40s, already their estrogen's low, and they say, oh, I meet these nice guys, but I just can't feel anything. There's no spark. I can't feel anything because you don't feel. You're a big, strong, independent woman. You don't know how to feel. How do you start to feel? Is you start to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is you get with a guy, you start letting him do stuff for you. He pays for the meal, he drives, he picks the date based upon what you like. Here's a basic dating tip for the single women. Guys will say, where do you want to go? Say, here's 3 places. You pick. He gets to lead. Whenever you can get a guy to lead you, you will feel more feminine. My next door neighbor, her husband, she divorced. And I looked at her, I said, you're in your 60s. You look really good. What do you do? I dance. I have a dance instructor. He's amazing. So what's he doing? He's leading her in a dance. That's what women, I want to just stop thinking. I want somebody to lead me, guide me. Not all the time, but sometimes. And that's what romance is. And so that's one of the big estrogen stimulators. The next one is the 90s, which was communication. Communication. Romance doesn't even work if you don't do communication. Okay, it's just kind of like that petered out, because what women need is to be able to share who they are. The more masculine they become. See, if you're a woman, you're like me. You lose all this money. All right, nothing I can do about it now. Let me fix it. I'll solve it. I'll work harder. Done deal. No emotions. Nobody can imagine how my friend's like, are you just destroyed? I said, no, I'm motivated to go make money. So I've got 5 books in my head right now, working on them all. One of them's a poetry book. It's really amazing. Anyway, so this is the male side. Now, does that mean men don't have emotions? No, I have all this emotion inside. I process it without talking to you about it. If I have all this, like I had fears come up, I had anger come up, I had anxiety come up, in myself, I process it. And there's techniques for men to process things quietly. Unfortunately, they don't know those techniques. So then it bursts out. And then he goes to his female side. So how do I process it? I analyze it. It's the beginning of Western therapy was analysis. This is Freudian. Not that Freud was a pedophile and crazy stuff, but Freud was a sick person. But he did start this whole movement in the West, copying Indian ideas from the East. And mainly men came. And what would men do? They were all rich men because they charge a lot. And you go into a dimly lit room. He'd lie on a couch. There'd be no eye contact. The therapist stands behind you and says, okay, so what do you think about that? And why do you think that? And why do you think that? And you say to him, well, what do you think? Well, what do you think I think? It's all about analysis. What do you think? What do you think? Whenever you analyze something, as this is stupid, let me look at it in a better way. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I thinking this way? How do I change that? What's a better way to think about it? That's the man's process. The woman's process, since I have more women here today, I'm telling you the process, is that you talk about your feelings to somebody that you're not trying to change. And just let that settle in. Women come to me for therapy. They're not trying to change me. And I explained to them, not only are you not complaining about me, therefore I'm a great listener. 2, I only listen to you once a week. That also makes it easy. And you pay me. If you want your husband to listen to you, you have to pay him. And what's the payment? He needs to feel successful. That's it. I need to feel like I actually did something meaningful. I helped you. But of course, he doesn't know how to help you. So you can't give him that unless you tell him. You say, look, I just want to talk about my feelings for a little while and I'll feel better. You don't have to say anything or do anything. Matter of fact, don't say anything. And I'm going to share with you for about 10 minutes, give him a beginning and an end. Men always need to know what's the goal, what's the point, talk for 10 minutes. Okay, we're done. 10 minutes, we'll be done. You're training him how to listen to a woman. We've never experienced this. My dad wasn't like to my mother, how do you feel about this, whatever. They had conversations, but they weren't all charged conversations. Why? Because she was making estrogen all day long. Whenever you feel I can depend on others for support. She had a lady that came in that helped raise the kids. She had a neighborhood that supported her. She had other women that weren't all in the workplace, so the parents could take turns with each other. She had time in her life to do what she loved to do. She wasn't having to go off and do some job that was a grind until the kids grew up. And then she had her own business. There's time for that. But first, she learned how to be anchored into her female side by having somebody be there for her. We live in a generation, a divorced generation, where girls grow up not knowing how to trust a man. Your father wasn't trustworthy. He wasn't there. I mean, he's probably a good guy, but he wasn't like giving your mother what she needed. She wasn't giving him what he needed. Are we finished done? Is this the 10 minutes?
Yes. So
Okay.
it's
already over time.
Extra, we're a little over time.
Oh.
I got caught up out there. So
Y'all been very
But you're
patient.
good.
We've been 20 minutes overtime.
the energy here is amazing.
Well, it's a fun talk. So the idea, I'll finish up the idea. It's so important is that, let me give you an example of a conversation. My new book, I give like 10 different conversations and you can see the difference. So one is, I'm going to be the woman here talking to your boyfriend or your husband, whatever. You could say, I was in the office today and the copy machine wasn't working at all. And I tried to get help. Nobody would help. Had to go to another place to get help. I was expected to do X, Y, Z. They were supposed to be there on time. They weren't there on time. It just seems like I do everything. I feel overwhelmed. I don't get credit. I had this other guy helping me. He took all the credit afterwards. Everybody's acknowledging him, not me. So that's a story, right? That's what happened. That's what didn't happen. That's what you would like to happen. That's a story. Now, if I'm a woman and I tell you that story, you're going to relate. Okay? Because that's your experience in life. That's not my experience. I don't walk through nobody appreciated me today in the office. Gee, I couldn't get help that I wanted. We don't think that way. We come a whole different set of glasses when we go through life. So when you tell me that story, I can't connect. You want me to connect. I can't connect. I want to connect. I want to get in there. You just have to open up because that is what's called a story. That's a superficial story. You're in your head. You're just describing what happened. Now let's try to come back to the story with emotions. Oh my gosh, today was so frustrating. My copy machine, that thing breaks every time. They're supposed to fix it. I'm so disappointed. I couldn't get it finished. And now I couldn't turn into paper. I'm so concerned. I'm worried. So-and-so is going to say this. And I get so mad because so-and-so did it and they got all the credit, not me at all. I just wish that they would appreciate me more. They don't. Okay. Done. Now, woman's terrified to say that. That makes you sound like a big negative whatever. No, for me, it's like, oh, okay, you've got problems. I can solve them. It's emotion. And if you actually express yourself that way, not just being emotional, but identifying the emotions, because as soon as you identify emotion, already you're stepping back from it. It's no longer, I'm just upset. I'm upset. As opposed to, oh, I'm frustrated. Oh, I'm disappointed. Oh, I'm concerned. Oh, I'm embarrassed. You want to get a guy's real attention, love you more? Every day, remind him, say something like, oh gosh, today it was so embarrassing. I said this and I should have said that. That's pure humility. It's like you become like a sweet dazzle you can pick up and carry you wherever you want to go. This is vulnerability. It's emotion. That's what you're designed to do. And it makes estrogen. And as a result of that estrogen, you feel better, activates his testosterone. He feels like, oh, she needs me. You might think, oh, she's a delicate little girl, whatever. I'll be here for you. But then this is the problem. If you were to do that without understanding, I don't need you to fix it. I don't need you to solve it. I don't need you to say anything. I just need to share, and then I'll feel better. And always feel better at the end. Then you say, I guess I just need a hug, and just go in for a hug. And you'll be like, gee, this is an easy job. And I don't know why she's paying me, but I like this job if it really works. It's something nobody thinks to do ever. And when we talk about the balancing of the female with the male side of you is the part of you that solves problems. It's the part of you that solves things. It's the part of you that makes an effect in the world. Okay, that's your male side. I'm going to change something. My male side's excited because I know some idea I have today will help your life. Okay, so I'm going to have an effect. That's my male side. My female side would be sitting in the audience going, gee, that's so helpful. That's helpful. You know, I learn all the time, my female side. It's just that when I'm stressed, I need to go to my male side. If a woman's stressed, she needs to go to her female side. So now this is actually an insight that came to me while I was listening to something I wrote. And I realized again, whenever women are using emotions to change somebody, what side are they on? Their male side. You're trying to change somebody with your emotions rather than reflecting and sharing your emotions in order to change yourself. That's feminine. Just to get that. Now, all negative emotions, you have to realize this comes from a primitive part of our brain that has no logic. Okay, this is a monkey brain. It has no logic, all instinct, no logic at all. So what we're going to do is combine our monkey brain with the front part of the brain. So when we let the monkey brain try to change the world, who's changing the world? The monkey. And what are you going to evoke in your partner? His monkey reaction. This is called mirror cells. This is what happens when you have sex with a man. Everything changes. When you have a reaction to him, he will have a reaction back. And power comes from emotional charge. You can feel my emotion is positive emotion. But when you push on someone to change them, what will always happen? They will push back. So if you're angry with a man, he becomes angry back. If you don't trust a man, he will not trust you. See, you get the same reaction back. This is just the law of action and reaction. So if you use emotion to change a man, he will use emotion to change you back. And that's called an argument. This is what women do. This is what men do. We both do it. And if we become aware that we're doing it, we can stop it. We just have to be able to stop it. So greater awareness that if you're using emotion, so let's analyze what these emotions are for if you're a monkey. I'm angry. I'm a monkey. I'm intimidating you. I'm going to scare you. I'm going to make you submit. I'm controlling you. Right? That's what anger is for. Fierce teeth, bad loud noises. That's anger. So you get angry with a man, you're trying to change him. That part of your brain. If you're sharing, you're angry with your boss, are you trying to change your husband? No, unless you have the intent, you should go beat him up. Okay, sometimes that is a woman's intent. A woman said to me the other day, well, too many details. We're already way over time, but you've been very patient in enjoying this talk. I'm enjoying it too. So, but the idea of anger, sadness, oh, I feel so sad. Why does someone feel sad? To elicit empathy, compassion, and someone to help you. You know, it's like if you look in the Chinese movies, a very primitive culture, they have ancient movies of the ancient times. All it takes is for a woman to manipulate a man. The women are always the manipulators. The men are the violent guys. So the minute she'll start to cry. Next scene, she's not crying. Oh, no, stop crying. Stop crying. I'll do it. I'll fix it. He can't bear to feel her pain like that because he can't feel his own pain. But so sadness is to elicit help. You get help that way. Manipulation. Now you don't conscious of it. It's just what it is. It's instinct. If I want to get help, I'll just cry. If I want to get help, I complain. Just a more heady version of I'm sad. I'm not getting what I want. And I'm not telling women not to complain. I'm saying complain, bring your emotions into it, and don't share emotions that have to do with he caused it to you. It's just deadly. What they're all taught in psychology classes is the I feel hurt because you. It's just because you put I feel in front of it, you did it. You think he's not going to get defensive? No way. But if you say, I feel hurt, he said that, then you're going to feel like, oh, I love you, honey. He shouldn't do that. Just don't blame your husband. The problem is, in the workplace, you're suppressing all your emotions. So you can't walk around blaming people in the workplace. You might inside, but you're not going to express that. You'll get kicked out. So you're suppressing all your emotions during the day. And now in basic psychological terms, this is the ABCs of psychology that I agree with, is when you push down your emotions, you displace them when you get home. And when they come out, they don't come out like remembering what happened today. It's just like suddenly he left his socks on the floor. And today, how many times have I asked you to take those socks off the floor? I just can't be happy with socks on the floor. Well, it's just a little thing. It's not a big deal. There was a wonderful popular book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And if you're feeling good, it's all small stuff. And if it's big stuff, go to a therapist. If it's big stuff, you cannot handle it with your partner. Already you have big problems. You can't handle it. You need help. So if you're not going to get an expert's help, then realize that most everything is small stuff. But it grates on you. I mean, I have it happen to me. I can watch my stress level. You know, my wife died. Did I mention that? Well, she died 6 years ago. Very depressing for me. I'm remarried now. I'm very happy, but that was the worst thing. I haven't written a book since. Okay, it was just devastating for me. And I've recovered and healed and everything. I mean, men have all these feelings, but we just process them differently. That's all. We have to analyze them and feel them. We have to write them out. You know, eventually I have this app coming out, which will help particularly men, but also women. It writes out your feelings for you. It likes you just give the superficial story, like I gave you a superficial story, and it will automatically, with the help of ChatGPT and certain prompts I put in, it will write out your emotions. It trains people emotional intelligence. It's the most amazing miracle. I tried writing it in 1995 because it's how I do therapy. I let women talk for like 20 minutes, and then I tell them, now this is what you feel. And they go, how do you know all that? Because I've talked to women over and over and over. But also I know it because I have a female side. And anytime I'm upset, I have to listen to my female side. And so I write out what she's feeling. I'm angry about this. See, you can't be angry without also having fear. You can't feel sad if you don't also feel guilt. They all blend together, and you have to separate them out and know what your emotions are. And then behind that, it goes, yes, this, yes, but, and then this shows up. We are designed to look at the bad and look at the good. The left part of the brain right here only sees good. This only sees bad. And you can just look at good, and then you'll be stuck feeling bad all the time. Or you can look at what you feel bad about and fully feel it. Then your brain will automatically shift to look at the good. And this is called emotional processing. It's in all of my books. You can learn the techniques are in every one of my books. It's how do you process your emotions. And that's how men do it privately, by writing it out or talking to somebody, talking to a therapist. The problem for men is if they talk about their emotions with other men, it's kind of like, get over it. These guys say, I can't talk to other men about it. I can only talk to women about it. Then you really don't need to talk to women about it, because that means you're 8 years old. You don't need to be 8 years old in the presence of a woman, particularly not in the presence of your wife. So I can go on, but this is what I'm writing about in my book right now, is how to communicate to a man. So listen, it came to this part where you don't expect him to be a girlfriend and talk about his feelings. That's the first step. When men don't talk, that's good. Women say, oh, he's emotionally unavailable. No, he's available to you if you open up. You're the one with the walls up. You're waiting for him to open up before you let your walls down. You're the girl. You have to have the courage to open up your heart. And how do you do that with a guy who doesn't know how to listen? You tell him, give him a job. I just want to start talking about my feelings for 10 minutes. It's not about you. And you don't need to fix it. You don't have to solve it. Just listen. Don't do anything. Just listen and try to understand what it's like to be me. That's it. And now you are expressing what you feel. This is what I do in therapy with women. Just let them be women, but help them find their way back to their emotions, and they'll feel better. So it's not just looking at emotions. It's after you feel the negative emotions, then you make a transit to then just think, well, what do I want? 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 You see, every negative emotion is a, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. So sometimes you have to experience what you don't want, and then you really appreciate what you do have. My wife started this business this last year, complete failure. I lost all my money, and I invested all this money for my wife to have her business, and it's lost too. It's really been a hard year. But when she says to me, it's my big mistake. It's my big mistake. Now I just appreciate so much what you do for me. I said, good. It was worth it then. And for me, from my side, you have a spiritual idea that I'm always, everything that happens is a blessing. It teaches us lessons. And so I lost all this money. And guess what? I haven't written a book in 5 years, maybe 6 years. Well, now I'm writing books because I have to, because that's how I make money. And, it's like, I felt like, I'm giving my ideas and all the blogs and everywhere. But no, a book can go so many places. So it's amazing how easy it is for me to write when I really need to make the money. And it's the same thing. Men are motivated when they have to solve a problem. I want my children to have benefit from my money. I want my wife to have benefit, and all those good things. So I think at this point, just for fun, since you're sitting here and many people are happy to leave, are there any questions? Yes.
Do you have an estimated time when the book will be released?
That one? Let me, no, I hope in 3 months. But having said that, almost everything I've said is in my book called Beyond Mars and Venus. Somebody had me sign it today. Are you here? Can you show them that book? This book is fantastic. I think it was 8 years ago I wrote it. And it's called Beyond Mars and Venus. And big sections is how you rebuild testosterone as a man. The one main point I said today, don't do porn and don't complain. But then how to process your emotions, that's a bigger story. And then for women, all the different stages of your hormones, what time of the month, what you need to be doing at that time. In general, it's not like absolute, but knowing how to lower your stress hormones. Because think about it, when you go to see a doctor, if you believe he's going to help you, you'll feel better already. That's a placebo effect. Doctor can give you a sugar pill and it will work just as good as an antidepressant, just as good.
Just talk to you and feel better.
What is that?
Just talk to you and feel better.
You'll feel better. He'll talk to you. And what is he'll talk to you means he'll ask you questions and you'll talk and you'll have somebody who hears you. And see, the point is you talk to a man about your problems with him, he can't connect to you. Because if you have a problem with him, he's the problem. He wants to connect to you as the solution. So if you talk about other problems and you say to him, I don't need you to fix that, unless you do, you can say, oh, this is a problem and what should I do? He'll bond with you by solving problems. But usually women are saying, look, I can handle my life. I just want to talk. And talking, one, it raises your estrogen, lowers your stress. Two, it just makes you feel good. Like she just feels, but what's happening in your body? Estrogen's going up. Another one is, I guess I feel the time is we're running, so I want to finish up. There's so much. Yes, question.
Just a quick question. With high school teachers, in your experience, at what age men or girls start this testosterone and estrogen?
Oh, it's puberty. It's whenever they're getting pubic hair.
But I mean, like, is there boys, could be boys long before, after puberty, to the change happens? It's like a
Go ahead, talk.
physical thing? Or is it
It's so physical and it's brain.
It has to be 100%.
It's
Even if they don't know.
it's a biological shift. It changes there. Now, what grades? I'll tell you a story. When my daughter was going to middle school, at eighth grade, I was talking about these ideas with some of the teachers, and the algebra teacher says, it's remarkable. I can have a boy, and he cannot get abstract equations. He can copy it, whatever. He can't get it. He just can't grok it. And in one day, something will happen. He can suddenly get it. It's because it was in that day that his brain shifted. And that was his puberty experience. It is a place where boys, for math, very important for boys to learn math. Okay, they won't kick into the relationship till later. The girls kick into the social studies. And unfortunately, social studies now is all this craziness. But what girls need is the whole social study of learning that there are no facts. Okay, facts, when you're a child, you're in a state of fundamentalism where everything is absolutely true. There's a shift where your brain realizes that, well, this is true, but it's also this is true, and this is true. Like, I should always look both ways when I cross the street. But if I'm walking towards the street and there's no cars around, I don't need to look both ways. See, same situation, but you don't need. So the ability to develop the brain to be able to see what they taught us in 8th grade, or maybe a little bit later, is to look at newspapers and see 3 different articles about the same thing from different points of view. So there's no longer this absolute. And then you start if there's no absolute, then what I feel is an absolute too. So that's where they start using the phrase "I feel like," which is, if you continue that, you never get to feel your emotion. You just get stuck in feeling your thoughts. But that's appropriate at that age where they're starting to I have a point of view. My parents aren't always right. That can read, if you didn't get a lot of nurturing, that turns into rebelliousness. But the key factor there is socializations, particularly with other girls. And for boys, competitive sports. Very important. Mathematics and competitive sport. This all goes back to the Greek days and so forth. Is that
so at that age it's okay to say suck it up as a teacher?
No,
or
you never
no,
you never say suck it up even to your husband. This is because I understand what I need, and I've asked her to help me with that phrase. Men today are just such weenies that you just suck it up. How dare you say that? It hurts my feelings. I will never even utter the word "it hurt me." Okay, that is like the most primitive part of the brain and feminine part of me. It's such a victim state that I feel hurt. But for a woman, she can share that feeling for sure if that's what she feels. But it's kind of like the go-to for women. It's not even limbic system emotion. It's all the way back to the fight or flight center. It's I feel hurt. And if you say to a man, "Oh, when you did that, I feel so hurt," and you're feeling that hurt, you just made him into the villain in your life. So if you need to feel hurt, find other things that are hurting you and talk to him about that. And he'll be like, "I want to protect you. I want to be there for you." But what you do, but you want a man to change his behavior. So you want to say, "When you did that, it hurts." Well, you can say, "When you did that, I don't like that. What I would like is this." He will respond better. It's like, do we have to amplify our pain and suffering in order to get change? But this is the world we live in. Everybody has to be so upset about this and so upset about that to try to create change. The more you push, the more push back. So, I so much want to pick your brains and answer your questions, but was that an answer to your question? Okay. All right, good. I just have such admiration for teachers. There's this, but boys, particularly today, see, it was all women teachers when I was growing up, except for the gym teacher. But now that we're missing fathers at home, we need fathers. We need boys to be with fathers who are like me, going deer hunting with the men, doing all that. This is all part of being a masculine. For me, I had a mentor in my teenager. It was a millionaire man. He was an adventurer, whatever. He took me under his wing. He gave me a job. I had all these male mentors that helped me. And then in my 20s, I had a male guru who worked 24 hours a day and was always happy. So what that meant is he was on his male side, totally dedicated, and he was happy all the time. He was on his female side. So I got to see what that was, and that helped through resonance awaken that in me. And then when I was 28, I split. But to do my own thing. How many boys don't have that? See, this is what they need, is they have to have men who are cool, calm, and collected, and who are happy guys. I enjoy my work. It's my passion. I'm dedicated. I work hard, because they don't have it in their fathers. 70%, in different parts of the country, 50 to 70% of children grow up without a father in the home. That means it's devastating to a girl. You don't even know what men are like. As soon as a guy doesn't want to talk, you immediately go, "Oh my God, he must be mad at me," or he's a narcissist, or he can't share his feelings. This is a big thing today, all about all the narcissistic, unavailable, emotionally. You want him to not talk about his emotions. That's is one thing. It's good when a man is quiet. And And no conversation is going to happen unless you initiate it by saying, I'd like to talk about this. And then it's not like he'll never talk, just not about his feelings of sadness or complaining or being a victim. You don't want to hear that from a man. That's what he has to learn to suck up. So when he does it, you just don't encourage it. Okay. What you do, my favorite phrase is you out female him. See, everything's polarity. If a man goes to his female side, you're going to start listening to him. You're going to feel compassion for him. But when you're listening, feeling compassionate, you're on your male side. But when women go to their male side, they feel like mothers. And they feel like I'm responsible for him. I have to take care of him. You can't feel attracted to him. He's supposed to be grounded. I mean, I always want to play this video I saw 25 years ago, some university professor talking about the 4 things boys are expected to become. Poor boys, they're supposed to be fierce and grounded, not shaken by the world. Poor boys, they don't get to be upset and share their feelings. He was such a wimp. He was the wimpiest looking guy I ever saw. Every one of his points about these poor things that men have to do. And they, I can't remember all the details of it, but I just remember how completely in the wrong direction it is. And all I can do is help point us in the right direction. And there are some practical things we can start. And the most powerful of all is as women, because women are the one who read the books on relationships. Most of the people here are women. We have some great men who are here too. Not that many. Why? Because in order for you to raise your estrogen levels, relationship is the key. For men, relationship is for him to balance his male side with. So, you say, oh, men don't care about love. No, we go at the bookstore, we're buying the books on how to make money, because if we make money, then a woman's going to love us. And I remember before I got kicked out of Stanford, talking to these girls, and I said to this one girl, I said, they were saying, oh, this is all bunch of baloney, whatever. And I said, well, if you ever find a guy who wants to marry you and you tell your parents, what's the first thing they're going to ask you? What was it? Well, what does he do? What does he do? And if he doesn't do anything, they're really not going to be very happy with you. And she goes like this, my parents don't care what a man will do. I can do it all. I said, you just keep thinking that way. But it created a big row. And then I got kicked out of Stanford. Same thing happened at Harvard. I can't even go to these places to speak anymore. There'll be riots. Okay. There'll be people threatening me and throwing things at me. And I have to have security. So they say it's too expensive to have you. It's crazy. Look, I'm such a nice guy. It was so funny as a young boy growing up, I thought, I'm such a nice guy. Why would anybody not like me? And so many people love me, but so many people don't. It's just threatening to them. It's because it means they're wrong. It means they put all this investment into doing the wrong thing. And when you do the wrong thing, you get the bad results. And if you get the bad results and you feel like you're doing the right thing, then you get to blame somebody else. So you get to feed this feeling of being a victim. And guess what? When you're feeling like a victim, it feels good. You just find other victims, and now you feel you're belonging with a group of victims. That's the world we're in right now. We change it. It's not so bleak. There's so many wonderful men out there for these women in this room, and so many wonderful women. I know that they're all over the place, but it's a diamond in the rough. You go out, you got a rock inside of it's a diamond. You have to realize, and just as men have the diamond in the rough, women have to learn how to come back to their female side. And as you come back to your female side, but one practical thing is what you have to know. This is a point I didn't finish. Women in their 40s, they've already been divorced. They're looking around at the guys and whatever. And they say, I meet these guys. They've got a job. Okay. They're well-to-do. They have good manners and so forth. I just can't feel anything. That's because she can't feel anything. She's waiting for a man to excite her. You can't depend on him to take you to that higher level of estrogen. You have to get yourself up to 50%, up to normal. Then whatever he does will be exciting. It takes time. It starts out as a friendship. It starts out connecting in your mind and connecting in your heart. You let it go from north to south. If ever south wakes up first, it's the wrong guy. It's based upon fantasy. He's not available. On some part of you knows he's not available, and therefore he's dangerous. So if he's not available, he's dangerous. What hormone goes up with danger as well? Dopamine goes up. Dopamine goes up. Your estrogen levels go up, and you flame on at this guy who's just not available to you. It's the same thing with celebrities. You see some celebrities like, whoa, that celebrity. You feel like, wow. It's like, what if I was with him? Oh my gosh, your estrogen levels will go up because he's completely a danger, and he's also fake. This is another thing which is amazing interest. How I want to approach this. Whenever you approach somebody who lies to you, they put you in a spell. The biggest spell on we're going to watch the Academy Awards. Does anybody watch the Academy Awards here? Right. You do? So you like this spell? I remember it was about 15 years ago I stopped watching that because I just felt like I was putting on a pedestal. It was like, who are these people? They're like gods. You know, they have these glowing outfits and everybody's cheering for them and so talented and bigger than life screens. It's all a lie. They're actors. That's not who they are. I guess what freed it for me is at a certain part of my life, I used to do like counseling with actors. Their lives are so messed up. They're not that. It was brilliant writers who gave them that script, and those brilliant writers are on drugs. They're in some altered state. There's no writer in Hollywood that doesn't take cocaine or amphetamines. Okay, they have blah, 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 like that. It's all fantasy. It's all imbalance. So what happens is you see someone, and if they're lying to you, you believe that because it looks real. Whenever you believe a lie, you disconnect from your ability to know what is true. When you don't know what is true, then you have no power. So now you are depending on them. So this weakness comes over you, but estrogen levels go up. It's an amazing thing. We're in a wonderful time of where the lies are being revealed. And when the lies are revealed, people are empowered to find their power within. And like, I think all this stuff about Santa Claus should not be taught to children. You know, it's complete. You start out with a big lie. It's just this big lie that a big fat guy comes down the chimney. It's just like, how does that happen? Oh, it's magic. You know, just certain things are just big lies. And if you actually look at the whole thing about Santa Claus, it's a huge rabbit hole, but a main reason is Coca-Cola. You know that one. Yeah, the red and white.
I was going to comment.
Yes.
Because she's a teacher. I thought this conversation is so important. As a teacher, like you said, they now have maybe a really difficult job too, because young kids are confused what's being fed to them as to what should a girl be, a boy be. And a lot of it's biological, a lot of it's culturally, spiritually, religiously programmed. So we have to tease it out. But the biological part is so real.
It's the only thing that's 100% real.
Yes. And
matter of fact, anytime you're upset or happy, you're just imagining it.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's real is that I have this male biology and you have this female biology. And when you don't acknowledge that, you're in a complete, you don't have an anchor. And therefore you take everything personally. You're constantly trying to feel validated as a person that I'm okay because I haven't been validated from my actual biology. And to validate biology is to treat boys in a certain way, to treat girls in a certain way. Culture used to treat boys in a certain way, used to treat girls in a certain way. We don't do that anymore. And so and we're just talking about the formative years. As you get to your 20s, it's perfectly fine for a girl to be completely on her male side because she's anchored in her female side. So now you go to your male side, you're in balance. Same thing for a male. You develop your masculinity first, then you go over to your female side. So it doesn't override all of your testosterone. So it's a real shame. The biological reality is the biggest lie that's now being taught. And I've been fighting this battle ever since I started, because even back in the 70s, people would get mad at me when I say men and women are different. But now it's just off the chart.
It's by design too.
Well, that's a different conversation.
And this is all going to be undisclosed, so people.
It's waking up. People are waking up. There was some Churchill or something who also was a liar. All these great people, if you actually find out the story, it's deception. I know you hang out here. Thanks for coming. Did you learn some good stuff?
Yes,
I really did.
Oh, I'm so happy you could stay.
And
Okay.
I have your book in my car.
All right. Bye-bye. We should do them. It's time to end. Oh, time for the truth. You see, here's now I'm just going to go off the record. Okay, this is off the record, which is another for high school kids, history.
Yeah.
filled with lies.
Yeah.
Filled with lies. The victor writes the history. And it's the funniest thing, just for, you can't teach this, they'll kick you out of school, but here's a YouTube video. Every Saturday they come out with a YouTube video, and it's the hidden history. And it's called My Lunch Break. My Lunch Break on YouTube. It's only 20 minutes, and it will show you how everything we know about history is a lie. What, you know, when you heard about Columbus coming to America in 1492, and there were all these Indians, and they were, you know, didn't have many clothes on and whatever. Actually, there were Capitol buildings all around America. Beautiful Capitol buildings. There's no pictures of those buildings ever being built. They were here when they arrived. And you get glimmers of it because when they came, they thought there'd be cities of silver and gold. There were, and they still exist. You go to St. Louis, you'll see a hotel. Go into the hotel, built in 1780. Like, did anybody have electricity at that time? Did they have cranes at that time? Were there universities to train? The most magnificent lobby and hotel are rotundant. All these beautiful structures that we see today, most of them were destroyed, but some still stay here. They're magnificent. How many have been to Europe? You see those magnificent buildings and churches, cathedrals. They were supposed to be built 500 years ago, 300 years ago. Did people have cranes? They were all, according to our history, they're all riding around on donkeys. They had no electricity. Go look at the pictures of the World Fairs. Magnificent, gigantic buildings, and then they all destroyed them afterwards. All this technology we have, it was here before. There was a huge, the whole reset that happened. They have pictures of San Francisco, all San Francisco with no people in it. And buildings covered in mud up to like the first floor. Something happened. We don't know what happened. All we know is it's a big reset. Did you know under every major cathedral, there's miles and miles, 200 or 1,000 miles of bones, catacombs, miles, millions of people, bones of, and yet if you look at population, it was just supposed to be like these little towns. So much is hidden about our history. And so when you believe a lie, you disconnect from your power inside to know what is true. And so you're easily controlled. So with that thought, we come back to our relationships where we can have reality, where women can feel safe to express their truth about how they feel, which is biological. It's an emotion, not a head thing. You have the head thing. What's the emotion? And you learn to do this. My app will help you to do it. But right now you learn to at the beginning by just journaling. And all the great teachers today talk about how important it is to journal your feelings. I'll just add to it. Journal your feelings and then the emotions. Use the emotions. In all my books, I explain that process. Thank you all so much. It's been a wonderful time being here with you. What a fun evening.